Let's talk about conflict and the circle way. Cynthia Bergolt says, confronted by an outer threat or opportunity, you can notice yourself responding in one of two ways. Either you will brace, harden, and resist, or you will soften, open, and yield. I used to think that getting together and having good intentions were enough to work through anything. I thought, if everybody, including me, is doing their best, then we will be fine. I was wrong. I first came across the Circle Way when no other resource was working. I was a lead pastor in a church, and we could not find a good way to engage with conflicts that were happening. Regular communication practices failed us. Emails were fuel for frustration and misunderstandings. Phone calls created harmful triangulation in relationships. We tried several different meetings and processes, including hiring outside professionals and mediators, but no one ever really felt heard. And so we came to a point that was later named the rupture. After the rupture is when I found out about the Circle Way, a way of being together, where listening is the point, and the space is made to feel safe. I learned this new way because the effects of unresolved conflict were far-reaching and devastating. I spent 6 days immersed in Circle Way training, and I still remember this point in our circle meeting, and it was supposed to be fairly mundane, but it set off a full range of emotions within me. We're simply reviewing the nuts and the bolts of how to prepare and call a circle together. And as we went point by point through the list, I was completely broken. And that's because I knew that if I had been able to engage this process before our rupture, then much healing could have happened. I learned the Circle Way because it creates an environment and a structure where every voice is heard. A circle says there is a leader in every chair, and a well-prepared circle provides safety. Safety that is not always available in groups, especially during times of conflict. I've carried on the elements of the circle into my everyday life. I especially love to draw on them in my individual coaching, conflict coaching sessions. And so I'm creating this series, one, because I want to introduce the elements of the Circle Way to you. And two, I want to give you some examples of how I'm applying them in everyday life. So I've prepared a few sessions to talk about the elements of circle and how they help with conflict, and then also how I bring them into everyday life. For my next session, I'll be talking about intention, because most people I know intend to live with intention, but they don't, because wanting to isn't enough. And we're seldom taught how to live with intention. So I'll talk about what it takes to live with intention. Some of the other elements of circle that I'll talk about is the 4 agreements that are part of every circle. I'll talk about having a center, a place of focus. We'll talk about a talking piece. And one thing that we spend a lot of time on in preparation for a circle is our questions. For we grow in the direction of the questions that we ask. So I'll dig into these details and some others over a few recordings, but first, let me give you a gem now. My mission statement is to change the environment of conflict. When I first started coaching relationships over 10 years ago, I didn't really have any of the tools for what I was doing. All I had was a couch in my living room. And since then, I've learned that sometimes that's all it takes, a different environment. Life changes happen when people go on retreats to seminars. It happens when a couple decides to go see a counselor. One, because at least one person has decided they want to see change. And two, the dynamic has changed. The room has changed. The environment is different. So if you're feeling stuck in conflict, my first question is this: what can you do to change the environment? Physically, can you go into a different place, a room? Can you change the tone of the environment, like the way that you're talking or your body position or your posture? Taking deep breaths. Relaxing the shoulders that get so tight and allowing them to fall, it can go a long way. Or even holding a coffee cup in your hand, something else that can be the focus of your gaze. Or can you add something that signifies something about the intention of your discussion? The circle way taught me that if there's an elephant in the room, you can add a stuffed elephant to the table. Now that changes the discussion. So I'm talking about the circle way because we all face circumstances where good intentions are not enough. And that's why I became a relationship and conflict coach. Because good intentions, along with a few tools and a changed environment, can be enough. You don't have to struggle. You can live life fully now.